So most people think sleep is passive and they don't realize how important it is. Why would you say it's more important than just going to bed every night?
Oh, I mean, sleep is so much more than rest. Of course, we're totally unconscious and we are resting, but sleep is a very active state, especially during REM. If you look at brainwaves, it looks very similar to wake.
So REM, is it 90-minute cycles, or how does that work?
Yeah, sleep cycles in general go from about 90 minutes to 120 minutes. We have multiple cycles throughout the night with different stages, and REM sleep is just one of those stages.
I've heard people say before you should try to wake up outside of a REM cycle, like in that 90-minute window or 120-minute. Is that true?
Yeah, there's definitely something to it. If you wake up, for example, and you were in the middle of a dream, you're usually in the middle of a REM stage. You might feel a little more groggy. I mean, it's near impossible to really time it out, but like, for example, if you always wake up at 7 a.m. and you're really groggy, but if you wake up at 7:30 and somehow you feel a lot better, it's usually because you finished a full sleep cycle. So in a perfect world, you would be waking up between cycles. Yeah.
And REM sleep is the most important when you sleep, or is deep sleep, or isn't there different categories? You have deep sleep. Which one's the most important to get?
That's a really good question. I think that a lot of supplements, just for example, will like promote that you're getting more deep sleep. Everybody wants deep sleep because that's definitely the most restorative. That's where we have a lot of release of human growth hormone. Our brain flushes toxins in deep sleep, but we don't necessarily need more or less. We need a certain amount of every stage. So light sleep also there's reasons that we go into light sleep. Deep sleep is about 20-ish% of our sleep. REM sleep is about 20%. So they all have different functions. REM sleep is really great for memory consolidation, memories in general, emotional regulation. So deep sleep is generally just a term we use like if you have good quality sleep, but all the stages of sleep have different reasons for needing them.
So to get good quality sleep, it starts obviously before you go to bed. Obviously, I've heard before, like, don't drink caffeine past 3 p.m. if you're trying to go to bed at, say, 9 or 10 p.m. How long or how many things do you do during the day that affect you going to sleep? Like screen time, what all factors into getting a good night's sleep?
Oh, everything you do during the day factors into your sleep. Actually, I think that a good night of sleep starts the minute you wake up, especially if you have a more holistic view of sleep. It's not just you get in bed and you close your eyes and, as you said before, like it's a passive state. As soon as you wake up in the morning, your circadian rhythm starts to work. Different hormones are going. We have cortisol in the morning to help us wake up. And we want to start getting natural light. Natural light into our eyes helps us to tell time naturally. It's really one of the only ways that we can naturally tell time besides foods and meal timing. So starting right in the morning, for example, getting light into your eyes helps us to feel awake, but it also helps to set off a cascade of a whole bunch of biological things that are going on in our body that help us to get through the day, but also say, okay, I've been awake for X amount of hours, now it's time to go to sleep. So maybe not cutting out caffeine, but timing your caffeine appropriately because it does last quite a while in our bloodstreams. Minimum, the half-life is about 4 to 6 hours. So 4 hours later, half of that is still going around in your system, even if you don't really feel it. Light, as I mentioned, just whole healthy foods, exercise. Not only does it just, tire you out, but it also helps to increase something called adenosine, which is something that tells us that we are sleepy. So there's lots of things that you can do during the day. So a lot of times when people are frustrated that they can't fall asleep at night, it's not just that you need to get in bed earlier or pop a supplement. It's what have you done all day to get you to sleep.
Yes, I think a lot of people overlook all the things it can affect. Because I know me, I go to the gym only around 3 or 4 p.m. But if I take pre-workout, because there's caffeine in most pre-workouts, if I start taking it later than 4 p.m., sleep that night is delayed. And on top of that, like you said, first thing you wake up in the morning, get sunlight. But what would you suggest to someone who wakes up before sunrise, like 4 a.m., 5 a.m.?
Don't do that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that, especially if they want to work out or if they have kids. I
Yeah.
know it's a lot quieter earlier in the morning. First, make sure that you're also going to bed early enough. There's really no point if you are so busy and you're going to bed at 12 if you then get up at 4 a.m. because you're not getting enough quality sleep. I see a lot of people do that, and then not only are their workouts not as efficient, but there's other hormones that are kind of thrown off balance, and so you're not losing the weight, you're not gaining the muscle because you don't have enough sleep.
The workout's basically pointless if you don't get a good sleep.
Like you're getting, of course, you're getting some benefit.
Yeah.
It's always good to go to the gym, but like you're really minimizing the benefit in that way. I forgot what else you were asking me there.
Oh, the sunlight. So people who wake
sunlight,
up, how do they
right.
get? Yeah.
Okay, so if you have to get up earlier, or you have to go to work or whatever, and there's not a lot of sunlight, easiest is turn on all the lights in your house. Again, light tells us, it goes through our eyes into our brains, and it tells us that it is daytime, even if it doesn't really feel like it. Natural light, even on a gloomy day like today, it's snowing in New York, it still has much higher lux that helps to really align our circadian rhythm. So it's never really as good inside versus outside, but there are also really inexpensive things you can do. There's like light therapy boxes that you can find on Amazon. Of course, some are better than others. There are ones that are specifically for people who have this or shift work disorders. There are like headbands, they look like little blue lights, but light therapy boxes can be super helpful, and you really only need them for like 20 minutes in the morning if you can't get natural light.
And then vice versa for evening, try to have dim lights and red lights if possible.
Yes, 100%. Like in my home, well, I live in the city, so there's always light in our windows. Even if all the lights are off, it's relatively bright. So shades, of course, but we don't have any overhead lights. So basically when it's dark outside, it's dim in our apartment. We have lamps, of course. We're not living in the Stone Age. Candles, if you like that vibe, but lamps, if the simplest thing I would just say is like no overhead lights. People say no big lights. Maybe it's just a lamp or a light or candles, whatever, but keep it as dim as possible. Melatonin is naturally released during darkness. So sort of the opposite of what we were saying about the morning, it will be stopped in the morning. If we have bright light, that's how we trick ourselves into feeling more awake. And at night, like around dinner time or whenever it starts getting dark, as long as you're minimizing your light, then melatonin starts to be released. So it slowly tells you that you're getting sleepy and it's time to go to bed.
Now, blue light glasses, do they actually work?
Some of them do.
Because that's one way to somewhat get around if you have to work on, say, a laptop, or I guess if you want to watch Netflix or something, you could do blue light glasses.
Yeah, definitely. I think more than blue light is just bright light in general. Even on your phone, if you can dim the screen a little bit, on your TV, dim the screen a little bit. Blue light is known to impact melatonin negatively, which is why there's this like huge rush of blue light glasses. But a lot of them don't really do what they say they do. Ones with a more orange or like a red tint can be a little more helpful. Now, some people like them no matter what, though, because it helps with eye strain. So it can be helpful no matter what. But I think the biggest thing to be mindful of is just how bright the light is, blue or any color. Red light is kind of like a dark-ish light, if you can say that anyway. And red light has some other health benefits. So yeah, if you have a night light that's red, that's fine too, as long as it's not lighting up your whole room and it's super bright, which is kind of, doing the opposite of what we just said.
So you take a holistic approach to sleep. Now, is melatonin, people who take melatonin as a supplement, I know you can abuse it and take too much, but is that something you suggest to someone who can't fall asleep? Or do you think it's more deeper than just taking one supplement?
It's almost always deeper than just taking the supplement. There are very few people who are deficient in melatonin and would actually need it. So just like if you are not deficient in, vitamin B, and you take a B vitamin, you're not going to get a ton of benefit from it. It's not really going to hurt you. It's pretty hard for melatonin to be dangerous, but there's a lot, especially with melatonin specifically. It's one of the it's not technically a vitamin, it's a hormone, but it's one of the supplements that is notorious for not having what it says in the bottle, like anywhere from 10% to like 400% of what's actually in the bottle. So first of all, you don't really know what you're getting. Second of all, if you're not deficient in melatonin and you're sleepless, we have to figure out, why are you sleepless? Now, melatonin is super helpful for people who are jet lagged, people who are trying to change time zones for whatever reason. Shift workers can benefit sometimes. There is some research around people on the autism spectrum, and people as they get older, we produce a little bit less melatonin too. So there's certainly protocols for it. But for the most part, people are just like taking handfuls thinking it's a sleeping pill, but it's not really necessary in that way.
Yeah, and how many people probably still are on their phone watching Netflix, bright lights, and they just think, oh, melatonin's going to fix this issue. Like you said, there's so many more things. Like you said, when you wake up, basically start your day of getting a good night's sleep that night.
Exactly.
There's a statistic that says 70 million Americans have a sleep disorder and 80% go undiagnosed. And then obviously your role is to help them diagnose it, but how would you know you have a sleep problem to go to you or try to find an answer to it?
That's a really good question, because everybody at some point has some kind of insomnia. A lot of people, I know when I get sick, I snore. If I'm congested, if I drink too much, I snore a little bit. So that's not necessarily a sleep disorder. But if we'll take insomnia, for example, because that's like the most common. If you are sleepless for more than 3 days a week, for more than 3 months in a row, it can be diagnosed as an actual medical condition called insomnia. And it's the same thing with sleep apnea, which would be the second most common sleep disorder. Snoring, having trouble breathing at night, being just exhausted during the day. These are all signs, and it's not just that it is a disorder, it's how it affects you every day. Like if you are chronically sleep deprived because of insomnia or sleep apnea, you're gonna feel it in your everyday. So most people, a huge reason it's so undiagnosed is because we all experience sleeplessness and we have this hustle culture and we're like, whatever, we'll figure it out later. But usually by the time someone wants to get help for it, it's because they're so desperate, because their quality of life is really suffering. So it's really important to sort of see like how it's not just sleeping, it's how do I feel when I'm awake and what am I missing out on and what's missing from my life in general. And that's why people should really be getting tested and seeking out some help, because there is so much help out there. It's just people kind of wait and maybe they try to figure it out on their own first. But there's a lot of options.
How, when you say get tested, what's that look like? What are you testing? Do you wear you can do a mask? Or like how does that work?
There's a lot of options. I mean, for insomnia specifically, like you kind of know if you're sleepless or not. So usually that's just subjective. You talk to a doctor, tell them about your symptoms, why are you sleepless? When is it happening? How often is it happening? But for sleep apnea or other sleep disorders, narcolepsy, restless leg syndrome, there are objective tests and measures that you can take. The most common, and especially over the last few years, it has been so much easier to do, would just be an at-home sleep test. People probably see ads online for it. It's either like a little ring or a wristband, but they are medical grade, so they are different than what you get if you're sleep tracking, like with an Oura ring, for example. And those would measure different parameters to see what's going on in your body when you're sleeping, not necessarily your brain waves, but it has an algorithm to sort of make educated guesses to say, yes, what's going on in your body is a sleep disorder, or no, we have to look at something else.
So how do you feel? I know we talked a little bit before we started the podcast about like Whoop that I wear or an Oura ring. Is there benefits to wearing them, or do you think it's a lot more just trying to sell a product rather than actually giving you good knowledge to help you put it to use?
It's such a good question, because the answer is nuanced. Of course, if you are somebody who really is trying to live a healthier lifestyle, this feels like a really great thing to add. If you're tracking, if you're trying to look for improvements, 100%, this is like, sleep trackers are great. It gets blurry when you do have sleeplessness, for example, or if you are an anxious person. I see a lot when people are struggling with sleep and they'll be using a sleep tracker, and it's just kind of reminding them every day, like,
They
you
suck.
only got 4 hours of sleep, you feel like garbage today, you don't have you don't have enough strength, or you're not, the recovery number is low. And so it's just like, it's making them more anxious about sleep. Some people also like the competitiveness of it. They're like, okay, if I get to bed now, and they start the countdown, but then that's like kind of exciting them before bed too. So I think it really depends on the person. I think especially if you're looking for something, or if you use it as a baseline, I love that. Like if I'm working with somebody and they do have a sleep tracker, yeah, I'd love that information. But from there, I might tell you to take it off for a few minutes, or for a few days, few weeks. And then maybe we'll put it on again in a few weeks and we'll see what has changed and what's gotten better. So it depends what else you're using it for.
Yeah, it's definitely big for me, because some nights I'll like, you put in your time, like Whoop, for example, put in the time you're going to wake up. And if you get to bed later, it'll be like tomorrow you'll be at 60% recovery. And like that's low for Whoop. And it is to mentally, it's like, like, am I going to feel like crap tomorrow? But I normally, if I do see that, I try not to think too much about it, because sometimes that number doesn't reflect how I feel. But some days where it's like, we just got here on Thursday night, didn't get much sleep, woke up, I think it said 13% was my recovery, and I was like, I kind of feel it. But that makes sense, because traveling, stress, get to bed, sleep, you're not sleeping in the same bed, but you wake up, drink coffee, and ready to go.
Power through, of course, yeah.
Snoring. I used to snore, and I don't snore anymore. What does snoring mean for if you have good sleep or unhealthy, or how does that work?
That's really interesting. When did you stop snoring? Do you feel like something changed in your life?
Well, I think when I snored more, I weighed more.
Okay.
Kind of like in a bulk. But currently, I'm like bulking, and I'm around the same weight, and I'm not snoring. But I also do think back then, my sleep wasn't as good. I felt like for a while, I would go to bed, couldn't fall asleep. I would fall asleep, but it wouldn't be, say, a deep sleep. It just was just like that, and then I was awake. That's the only thing that's different. Now I feel like when I go to bed, I feel like I sleep good.
That's great news.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, snoring in general, about 90% of people who snore have some kind of sleep apnea. If you think about what snoring is, it's the sound of the soft tissues vibrating in the back of your throat. And so why would that happen? Like if you think of a newborn baby, they don't really snore. Everything is perfect and new. The air is flowing. But if you're sick, for example, or if you're overweight and you have more tissue back there, then it's vibrating. And what else is happening then? It's vibrating because the air is passing through it, but it's restricted. So even if you don't have sleep apnea, which is very unlikely for most people who snore, but even if you don't, you're not getting as much air, you're not getting as much oxygen, it's drying out. You might be mouth breathing, which is not ideal just in general, especially during sleep. And so usually snoring is a sign of something else. And so for you specifically, if you happen to lose weight, or maybe you have more muscle, less fat, muscle helps to keep our airway open. Someone who is bigger in general, especially if they have a wider neck or a wider waist, that tends to make them snore a little more, because our airway is already so narrow. Just a little bit of extra weight, especially if it's not a stronger muscle, can just collapse it, which also causes snoring.
So I also left out, every once in a while I'd wake up, and I felt like I was holding my breath for 3 minutes, because my heart would be beating really fast, and I'd be like I needed a breath. Does that mean anything?
I mean, obviously I don't have a sleep test in front of me, so take it with a grain of salt, but yeah, it was most likely an apneic event. So you were having a sleep apnea event. Maybe you don't have, severe sleep apnea, but it's so common. You mentioned before 80% of people are undiagnosed. 80% of people who have sleep apnea are undiagnosed, because they just kind of think like, every now and then I wake up with anxiety in the middle of the night, but you really shouldn't be doing that. Usually if you're waking up like that, you're gasping for air, your heart is racing, it's because you stopped breathing for a few seconds. Even if it was just, 10 seconds, but your body's like, hey, wake up, don't die, you're suffocating. So it's good that you woke up.
Yeah, no kidding.
But usually it's your airway is blocked.
How do you feel about mouth taping?
I like mouth taping. I've been mouth taping the last few weeks, especially because I've been like a little congested and I want to make sure that I'm breathing through my nose and not my mouth. The huge problem with mouth tape is because I work with so many people with sleep apnea, I find that a lot of people use it when they're snoring, and it often means they have sleep apnea, in which case they're just blocking their airway even more. They're not going to suffocate. It's just tape, but it's not good for them.
Yeah.
So if you're using it to like enhance your sleep, if you can breathe through your nose naturally, then yeah, I like the idea of it. It's just thinking about why you use it. Like, it's not a substitute for treating sleep apnea.
Almost physically a Band-Aid covering up a bigger problem.
Exactly. Literally.
Yeah. So what got you into sleep? It's you're a sleep expert now, but what got you into it originally?
Oh, good question. I was actually working for a sleep apnea company. They make dental devices for people with sleep apnea. And it was just like one thing that I was selling to dentists and physicians. But it's like anytime I met anyone and they're like, oh, what do you do for a living? Or I talked to someone at a bar and I'm like, oh, I'm in sleep medicine. I work with people who snore. Like, everybody had something to say about it. Everybody had questions. Of course, on social media, I started seeing like all these tips and tricks and realizing that like everybody has so many questions. And I would go and I would help these physicians talk to their patients, and I'd realize even the physicians didn't have a lot of information. So I started just kind of getting obsessed myself. Then I went back to start studying for a clinical test. I spent a lot of time overnight in sleep labs to see what was going on and how the sleep tests were run, what medical conditions they were looking for. And then I earned a clinical credential and started Sleep Better NYC.
And talk more about Sleep Better NYC. That's your own thing that you started.
Mm-hmm. Yep, so Sleep Better NYC is my company for sleep coaching and education. Because I do have the clinical credential and the experience, it's been a really great way to sort of like bridge that gap. When I first started, it was right during or after COVID, and when I was looking up sleep coaches, it was pretty much only for babies, which some people love and some people think is stupid. But I was like, what about their moms, and what about their dads, and what about all of the people all the time who are telling me that they have sleep problems? So there were really only coaches for babies. So I was like, okay, first I'm going to help adults. That's also what I was trained in, so that helped. And I really just wanted to be able to connect people with helpful information online, so they weren't just getting all this garbage and all this noise, but also if they did need a physician, to be able to get to a physician. And because I had that experience in healthcare, I knew how to do that.
And I think I also read somewhere you try to make it affordable for most people.
Yes, I think access is a big issue in general, especially here in America with healthcare. So people do always turn to TikTok and Instagram. And so if you're going to go there, I'm hoping that at least you have access to better information with me and like some of my colleagues on there. And whether you have insurance or not, at least we can provide, do-it-yourself options, or a few products that can help even if they're not medical products, or an easier way to get a sleep test that doesn't cost $6,000 in a sleep lab. So I try to really meet people where they are.
Yes, one of your reels I liked, it said you're not an a-hole. You're probably just sleep deprived.
Yeah. I mean, it could be both. I think a lot of people are both.
Yeah.
But sleep deprivation doesn't make you your best version of yourself.
Yes. I heard somewhere one time most fights in marriages would be solved if you weren't hungry, like you ate food, and you had better sleep.
I could probably get on board with that. Yeah. I know people always say, like, don't go to bed if you're angry. I'm like, no, go to bed, sleep it off, wake up in the morning. Obviously, if you're like sitting there stewing, then you're awake anyway. But I do not believe in dragging out a fight at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're kind of like half crazy anyway at 2 o'clock in the morning. And when you wake up in the morning, almost always, you're kind of like, it's not really that big of a deal.
Yes.
So go to bed.
Some days when they're long and stressful, the best part about the day is knowing I get to go to bed, wake up, refreshed, start over, and that day's over with.
Agreed. Then fight about it later, like if you really have to.
Yeah. So what is a story with a patient that you've had that you can talk about that was like you can remember?
Ooh, there's so many. Actually, I have someone recently who is a shift worker, yeah. So she, there's all these tips online, and it's like, do this and go to bed at 10 p.m. and wake up, and nothing applies to her. And so if she didn't reach out for help and she was trying to do it on her own, I would imagine that would be pretty frustrating and probably causing even more stress. They're telling her all these horrible things that are going to happen to her because she's working overnight, which, shift work is not great for humans in general.
People who work third shift they die younger.
They do. It is categorized as a carcinogen. So yes, of course it's not ideal, but if that's the life that you have to live for whatever reason, or that's the job you chose, you have to kind of work around it. So even just talking to someone, like our first call, it felt like a huge relief to her. I didn't really give her a ton of information, but just like hearing her out and not telling her these generic tips that weren't going to work anyway, I felt like she just looked more relieved. And I feel like that's so important to remember, that everything is so personal, especially with sleep, that sometimes you just really need to talk to someone who's going to personalize it with you instead of trying to do it yourself. I mean, how many hours could she have potentially spent online scrolling and looking and talking to her primary care doctor they're just not really trained in it unless they are a sleep specialist.
Yes, I think you would know better than me, but most doctors that you go and see that are like a broad doctor, they're not specialized in certain things, the certain fields. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you might know more about that field than they do, like especially you, because you spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day working with people, studying, doing the research, and they're just trying to, I guess, get you a solution or just give you some medication and tell you, see you later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's so hard, especially now with like the wellness industry being really popular. On one hand, it's so great because people are really taking control of their health. On the other hand, they sort of, we throw a lot of doctors under the bus and we're angry with them, but primary care doctors get maybe 2 hours of education on sleep. And so even though that's kind of scary, we all sleep, they can't really help us. It's also not necessarily their fault. They're looking at all these other things. So that's why it is really important to find a sleep coach or find sleep medicine is a specialty in and of itself. A lot of people go to a psychiatrist, for example, or a therapist when they have sleep issues, but a lot of them are not also trained in sleep. So there's even sleep medicine behavioral therapists. So you have to really find someone who's specialized, especially if it's impacting your life.
Steve Bartlett, he has Diary of a CEO, but he has a quote that says, you can tell who someone will become by how they sleep more than how they work.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, if you're prioritizing your sleep, then you're really saying like that this is important for me to improve in all aspects of my life.
Yes. And then we're talking about sleep deprivation, but it says sleep deprivation impairs your reaction time worse than having a 0.08 blood alcohol limit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, depending on the person, of course, and what else you've been doing throughout the day, but we see studies that show up to like 300% slower reaction time. So maybe that's like 2 seconds while you're driving, but like how far is your car going when you're driving and you didn't slam on the brakes 2 seconds earlier?
Yeah. Same as like texting and driving. I forget what the percentage is. If you look at your phone for a second or 2 seconds, the amount of time on the road that you've traveled. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think so many people probably overlook the sleep part. Like when you're driving, everyone talks about, obviously alcohol and drugs and that, but sleep deprivation's as worse or, around the same.
Yeah, I mean, we're not meant to be awake for 20 hours a day. And so, of course, again, if you have to do that for work or whatever reason, you can rebound, for a day or two. It's fine. Humans are incredibly resilient, but we can't optimize. We might be able to function fine. I always say, like, ask any parent, like, sure, you can sleep 3 hours a night and you can function. Humans get used to things, are very resilient, but that doesn't mean it's not impacting us. So your reaction time is slower. Your hormones are out of whack. You are less empathetic. You are making crazy decisions, even if you feel okay, which you probably don't anyway, but it's just how our bodies are made.
Would you say poor sleep could lead to obesity? Or not obesity, but weight gain?
Oh, 100%. And that's what I see too a lot is like, we mentioned it before, you know, you wake up early to work out, but, you know, you're struggling to lose those last 5 pounds. And it's like, well, what else is going on? Like, if you're waking up that early, did you get enough sleep? Did you have enough growth hormone release? Are you even able to work out more? Are you having, you know, more cravings and feelings of satisfaction? Those hormones are impacted immediately after just one poor night of sleep. So it also spikes cortisol, and insulin levels are out of whack. So a lot of people who, just for example, have untreated sleep apnea, they also have diabetes. And when one improves, the symptoms of the other improve. It might not cure, you know, if you treat your sleep apnea, maybe you still have diabetes, but maybe you're not really having symptoms anymore because you're regulating your blood sugar levels when you're sleeping.
When you say treat sleep apnea, what would that look like? I mean, obviously it's different for everyone, I think.
Yeah, I mean, most common is that mask. Yep. That looks like a Darth Vader mask to some people that like helps keep your airway open. It pushes air into your airway while you sleep so it doesn't collapse at night. There's also dental devices that just help to hold your jaw open a few millimeters, again, so that airway doesn't close. There are surgeries that are a little bit dramatic, but very successful because it's surgery. And they're also coming out with medication as well. They're actually, one of the weight loss medications, the injections, was approved for sleep apnea as well, which is super interesting. People who lose weight do tend to improve sleep apnea, but the weight loss medication also has an impact on blood sugar levels and also has a potential neuroprotective factor, which helps with inflammation. And all of these things improve sleep, but it also can help with your airway function in general. So there are a lot of options. It's rare to totally go away on its own unless it was caused by weight or hormones, or usually as we get older, it's just gonna get worse.
So I'm thinking of someone, and for example, they say they can't sleep, they can't go to bed, and they don't go to bed till 3 a.m. Now they do play video games all night long mostly. What would you say to this person to help them get better sleep? And they could also be slightly overweight.
Well, and humans are just not made for that. So maybe they get used to it, and maybe for whatever reason they don't have to be up early in the morning. A huge reason that that's not sustainable is not just because that's not how humans are designed, but because it's not easy to have a social life or work obligations or family obligations with that schedule. So people can be night owls, they can be morning birds. There's a few in between, but even if you're a night owl, that means you're going to bed like between 10, 11, 12. Once you get later than that, you're really starting to confuse your body. And going back to what we said before about light, if it's dark this whole time, but you're staring at a screen, you're really confusing your brain on what time of day it is. And so maybe you're fine for a little while, but eventually, almost certainly, this person may experience anxiety. They're going to experience sleeplessness, the weight gain from probably various reasons, including that light, especially when we're getting light into our eyes when we're supposed to be asleep. That impacts cardiometabolic function, and we are seeing that somehow that can actually trigger some weight gain as well.
So I'm not trying to steal free money from you, but what would be the first thing for this person would you tell them to do to help them fall asleep sooner?
I mean, potentially, well, obviously we're going to want them to stop playing video games till 3 a.m. I think just telling anybody that and like saying to quit cold turkey is a little bit impractical, if you will. So I would say, I mean, really,
even TikTok, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
How many people fall asleep on their phone? They're just staring at their phone. It's the same kind of concept.
So maybe instead of just saying, okay, you have to put your phone down at, 10 p.m., I could say that, but most likely you're not going to do it, or you're going to do it, but it's going to make you feel anxious, So I would say instead to set an alarm for, say, an hour before and start to really focus on winding down. So winding down would be super important for anybody, whether you're going to bed at 9 p.m. or 2 a.m., because it helps to tell your body that you're about to go to sleep. There's this analogy where they say, if you have a house and a garage, you wouldn't drive 60 miles an hour and then get to your house and pull in the garage and slam on the brakes. You get off the exit and you stop at the stop sign and you slow down. humans are the same way. You can't just jump in bed and expect to fall asleep. So we need some wind down time. We need to not be looking at a screen for a little while. We need to be focusing on being in quiet and being in darkness. So a wind down routine would be the first thing. And I really like not a bedtime alarm, but like a getting ready for bed alarm. Like my phone goes on do not disturb mode at 10 p.m. because I want to go to bed at 11 p.m. And it kind of takes the pressure off too. I'm not like, oh no, it's 10, I have to be in bed right now. So that's where I would start.
Yes, that is something I try to do. It's been hard recently because a lot of the stuff like editing podcasts, I have to be on my laptop. Mm-hmm. But I'll throw my blue light glasses on, even though they might not work. But there for a while, I'd try like 2 hours before bed, I'd try to set my phone down and then dim the lights. I always like the lights dim. Mm-hmm. But like you said, set almost a routine. Everyone has usually a routine when they wake up, do their makeup, take a shower, but most people don't have that in the evening. They just jump in bed, like you said, pull in the garage, 60 miles an hour, slam the brakes, and they think their body should say, go to sleep. But yeah, so that's something I've tried to do is have that nighttime routine and set the phone down if I can, or the laptop, and then work or let your body know, like you said, it's nighttime.
Right, exactly. And I've started to put my phone, even if you put your phone on the other side of the room, yes, maybe you're going to check it again a few times. Maybe you like triple check your alarm is set, but it really makes you think about like, oh wow, I just picked up my phone 5 minutes ago. Do I really need to go grab it again? I would love for you to put it like in the kitchen when you're sleeping or another room. If you can't do that, just maybe out of arm's reach, to at least it starts getting your brain going like, do I really need to get that right now? Yeah,
and I think an excuse a lot of people use is, what if someone needs me? And the more that I realize when I set my phone down and pick it back up, like sometimes I'll do 3-day vacations where I detox from my phone, and I realize when I pick that phone back up 3 days later, no one really needed me that bad.
Yeah, like they figured it out.
Yeah, and so I do something in the evening, like you put yours on Do Not Disturb. I do the same thing, but like on iPhones you can pick mm-hmm. who can call you. Mm-hmm. So I just pick like mom, dad, the people that if they're calling me at that time, it's an emergency, pick up the phone. But everyone else, you just don't get access to me.
Right, exactly. And something so simple like that, again, you're not worried like, oh no, what if my mom calls at 2 a.m.? Because you're like, oh, she'll be able to get through. It's fine. So doing as much as you can to just like eliminate outside forces, if you have control over it, just like you set your alarm, trust that alarm is going to go off. As you know, people do this all the time when they're traveling. They're so worried they're going to oversleep and miss the flight. But like, have you ever not waken up to the 3 alarms that you're setting? Like, I don't know how realistic.
The same person I was talking about earlier about mm-hmm. going to bed at 3 a.m., they don't wake up on their alarms.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I wonder why they're so sleepy.
Yeah. How many people do you think confuse anxiety, depression, those things not related to their sleep?
Oh, I mean, sleep and psychiatric conditions, which sounds super dramatic when I say it like that, but they are directly linked in every way. There is no mental health or psychiatric condition that is not impacted by sleep or vice versa. And so maybe you are prone to anxiety and that's completely unrelated to sleep, but when you're not sleeping well, it's going to get worse. And of course, when your anxiety gets worse, you're not sleeping well, so it's like this vicious cycle, but it is impossible to separate the two. And that sounds really doom and gloom too, but I also like to say, like, especially when people are getting treated or getting help for their sleep, like, this is great news, because if you feel that bad right now, when you do get better sleep, you are going to have some symptoms resolve. Maybe your depression won't be as terrible. Maybe I've seen a lot of people titrate down on medication. Maybe they still need it, but maybe they don't need as high of a dose. So it can be good in a way that it's related, because if you improve your sleep, you can improve your depression, anxiety, things like that.
So you treat athletes and just say normal working people.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is the biggest difference between an athlete and someone who has, say, a 9 to 5?
Oh, probably the discipline. You know, everybody has a million things going on and we all want to work hard. Maybe not everybody, but like a lot of people are working hard. But an athlete, if it's going to impact their performance, it's sometimes I think easier for them to see versus someone working in an office where they really can just like power through. It's not as easy for humans to understand like cognitive issues that we're having. Like the reaction rate, is it, 2 seconds or 3 seconds? We're not really going to know the difference. If I'm a little bit forgetful and it slows me down a little bit, I mean, like, how much is that really impacting me? Versus athletes, they might notice right away, I'm half a second slower, I missed that free throw. So I do find that sometimes athletes are a little bit more open to the change because they can see it more physically. There's a reason LeBron James and Simone Biles and Tom Brady all love sleep. Now, if we could just remind us normal people that we also need it as well, that would be super helpful.
I think people also think they can't relate to them because they need their bodies to perform to make money. But I also believe anyone who goes to a job and has to use their brain, or it's a blue-collar job, you still use your body to perform. And if you can't perform well, you end up losing an arm because you're not thinking, or you're so tired. You see videos all the time, at least I do on my Instagram feed, but someone reaches their arm in like a press, not thinking, pulling something out, and then their arm's in the press and it's ripping off.
Dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you have to drive to work maybe, and you could get in an accident, knock on wood. You could, forget a meeting, you're falling asleep at 3 p.m. So sure, maybe you're not getting paid to be an athlete. Millions of people aren't watching you, but your day-to-day is impacted. Maybe you forget to pick your son up at school, or you're late, it still impacts you.
Yeah, we still have to perform. So back to you saying hustle culture, and everyone nowadays, like I like to say sometimes I'll sleep when I'm dead. But it's not 100% true, because listen, I think I have 800 some days tracking my sleep.
Oh, wow.
So, but there is some days where you can't get the sleep that you want. But the hustle culture, some people say, I would say, what's the most optimal hours to sleep? But I know it's different for some people. Like, I think Donald Trump says he only needs 5 hours of sleep, and I'd say it's somewhat working for him. He's 70-some years old, running the country, and he seems decently fine. Then you have some other people that think they need 12 hours of sleep. I think that might be a bit extreme, but both sides are extreme. What would you say is the most optimal for, like, the most average American? Or not American, just anyone.
Just people in general. Humans need 7 to 9 hours of sleep, generally speaking. Of course, there's like a bell curve. Some people, especially if you have certain conditions, may actually need 9-10 hours of sleep. Usually after that, there is some kind of medical condition going on. As far as needing less sleep, there is DNA. There's a genetic condition that allows some people to be what they would call a short sleeper, meaning they need 4 to 5 hours of sleep and they can function optimally. Unfortunately, for everybody who thinks they are that person, it is slim to none chances on that, because it's 1 to 3% of all humans. So with that being said, a lot of people, again, are very resilient. Like, you can get used to a lot of things, and maybe you're functioning, maybe you're doing great at your job, but it would be really interesting to see that person, if they were only sleeping 5 hours a night, if suddenly they got 6 or 7 consistently. I think a lot of people don't even know how bad they feel until they start sleeping better, which is probably something you hear sometimes when people lose weight. Maybe they didn't even realize how tired they were or how slow they were until they lost weight, and they're like, wow, I have all this energy. The same thing is with sleep. So it's pretty unlikely. It's not impossible. There are people who can sleep less, but it's just, again, it's super unlikely.
Yeah, I think same way with diet. When I say bulking somewhat dirty and then I start eating clean, or not clean, but just more healthy, I don't have these big of spikes where I'm tired or like no energy. It's more just pretty even, feeling pretty good all day long. And I think diet, sleep, all that kind of correlates together. If you have a poor diet, I don't know. I don't even know. I think
it's a great example, because again, you don't really think about it. Like, you think you're fine, and then you're eating healthier, and you're
feel
like,
great.
Wait a minute, there's something to this.
Yes. So my Whoop says in the last year, it gives you like the statistics. Like Spotify, Apple gives you your statistics for music. My Whoop says my average sleep was 7 hours and 6 minutes.
Oh, I love that.
You
How
proud?
do you feel with that? Yeah, that sounds great.
I wish I could get 8.
Okay. People do generally just say 8 hours just because it's literally in the between 7 to 9. So like some people don't. I feel really good at like 7.5. And obviously over time when you're like really tracking it, you can tell the difference even between if I get 8, I feel good, but sometimes I feel a little bit groggy, and it's probably because I'm in the middle of a sleep cycle. So like 8 isn't necessarily better for me, but yeah, I'm around like 7.5 ideally.
Yeah. So I'm not a morning person, so it's hard for me to say what feels great because
You don't love it anyway.
I don't well, it's not I don't like waking up. It's just, it's tough. But once I'm up, I'm ready to go. In 7 hours, I do feel like I can function off of it pretty well. But I've always liked to sleep, especially when I was younger and didn't have as many responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Like 9 hours of sleep I felt amazing. But it's 9 hours you're sleeping then.
Yeah,
I don't always have that, so I saw somewhere you like talk about myths, sleep myths.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are the biggest sleep myths that are out there?
Probably how much time you need to sleep.
Yeah.
It's definitely the biggest one and like the easiest one for people to just kind of get into. Otherwise, probably it would be around the supplements and the gadgets, which again all have their place. I love a gadget or two. I like mouth tape and maybe some magnesium, but when I see people stacking all of these things and they need the blinds and the mask and they have a sleep disorder and they're taking pills, it's just, you don't need it. So I guess a huge misconception is that you need all of these things to sleep. If we think about it, all humans sleep. Every human sleeps every single night, and even if you don't sleep for one night, you're going to sleep the next night. And so why would we really need all of these things for something that we are literally designed to do? Maybe just like a little help you could use.
Yeah. And how many of those things would they get out of food if they ate healthier?
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
There's a statistic that says sleeping under 6 hours increases heart disease risk by 48%.
Yeah.
So poor sleep could lead to like a future heart attack or stroke.
Mm-hmm. Sleep apnea specifically is directly related to heart attack, stroke, increased risk of diabetes, sexual dysfunction, a whole bunch of terrible things. We also see people who are chronically sleep deprived, which would be 6 hours or less. Over time, there are studies just recently, sort of what we knew in sleep medicine but couldn't necessarily say because the research wasn't there, but now we do know that it is linked to cognitive decline as far as to say Alzheimer's disease. Now, I don't love all those statistics because they can be really scary and people think, oh no, I didn't get one night of sleep, I'm gonna have Alzheimer's. It is over time. It's over many, many years, but it is still important to remember that we want to stay, cognitively functioning for many, many years. So it's important to focus on sleep now so that we don't have to worry about it later.
I think you'll pay for your health now or you'll have to pay for it later.
Right. There's no getting around it. Like, we need it.
And then going to alcohol and drinking, I believe drinking doesn't even mean getting drunk, affects your sleep 3 days after you drink?
For quite a while. I guess it depends on how much and how often you drink. Alcohol is said to be the #1 sleep aid in the world, which is the most ironic thing because it only negatively impacts your sleep. So yeah, of course it can make you feel sleepy, sedated. Some people, they'll drink a glass of wine to take the edge off, but once you're asleep, it totally wrecks the quality of your sleep. So you'll have less REM sleep, less deep sleep, and then your body tries to catch up and it will do this rebound thing and it will give you too much of it. So even if you call it 8 hours of sleep, you're still not going to feel great the next day. And it's not just the chemicals and the alcohol, it's because your sleep has been just a nightmare. No pun intended. Your sleep has just been a wreck while you are asleep. And so, there's no amount of alcohol that's good for sleep.
And it dehydrates you.
And it dehydrates you. So you'll be using the bathroom because it's diuretic, but you're also dehydrated and you're having like wild dreams, but you're also not getting enough deep sleep. So just not recommended. I personally drink alcohol, but if you're going to, I would say drink earlier in the day. Give your body some time to process it. Maybe skip.
Wake up and get drunk drinking mimosas.
Exactly. There's Dr. Chris Winter says like the best time to drink a beer is with breakfast. Like if you're gonna drink, just try to drink earlier. Try to drink less. Try to drink earlier. It also increases your core body temperature. Even if it's just like a half a degree, that can impact your sleep. So I think it's really important to just be aware of it. Like if you are really, really struggling with sleep, then you can cut out alcohol. It's like one thing you can do to slowly help your lifestyle and your sleep.
I'm sure you run into it when you go to help patients, but it might be a little bit different because they're coming to you and you're not going to them. Mm-hmm. But people with excuses around so many things, like you can tell them what to do, but at the end of the day, they have to want it because, okay, so you tell them they need to get off a screen at a certain time and maybe pull alcohol out, but they don't change any of that. And they come back to you like a month later saying, no, nothing's working. Like they might try one thing you told them to do. Does that ever get, I don't know. Do you ever see that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, humans are so stubborn, just in general. It's true because they are coming to me at that point. Usually they are so tired of being tired that they are more willing to change, but it's a behavior change. Even if they want to change, of course, it can be difficult. I like the idea of Kaizen. It's just small changes every single day or getting better by 1%. So sort of taking that pressure off. You know, even the first call or two, a lot of people are like, okay, give me a list of all the things I have to do. But it's just not realistic for humans. And so I like to really focus on one or two things at a time. And maybe we are going to introduce a supplement or a pillow, but first we're going to do these other things here and slowly work towards it. Maybe we're going to try breath work or a little bit of mindset stuff. Maybe we're going to get you tested for sleep apnea. So I think it's really smart to not try to do everything all the time. Like if you say you're going to run a marathon, you don't like go and run a marathon the next day. You have to take baby steps.
Yes, I've talked about it before, but it's with anything in life. If you tell someone to go lose weight, obviously I'm into fitness, so I feel like I take a lot of things and put it back to fitness. But with anything, if you tell that person 20 different things they have to do, it's so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Like with habits, you shouldn't decide tomorrow you want to, or your morning routine, you don't want to just start with 20 things you have to do because now you're anxious about it. Then you're just rushing around trying to do all these things, and it's like just focus on one or two things, get those down, then we'll work from there.
Right, and like habit stacking in general is great for anything, but even when you do it for sleep, it's like, I don't know, let's say I'm telling you to practice breath work at night. We introduce box breathing. It's super simple. That's the only thing I want you to do. And once you start getting that down, you get that little dopamine hit. You're like, okay, check that off my list. I did it. I'm successful at it. It helped a little tiny bit. Okay, like what's next? So then you stack on top of that. Okay, now I'm box breathing and I'm also doing this, or I also have this routine. And it's not just easier, but it also triggers things in our brain to say, okay, this is part of my daily life now. So it's easier. And after I do X, Y, and Z, then I sleep. And it becomes more natural versus like trying to force it.
Yes. And then they get a routine and they don't even really realize.
Yes, exactly.
What is box breathing? I believe I might have tried it before. Is that when you breathe in, you hold it for so long?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Box breathing was designed by Navy SEALs to help regulate their nervous systems in tense situations. So I feel like generally it would be good for the public. You breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and then you hold again. So you can imagine going around a box. Some people find 4 seconds is a little overwhelming at first. There's another one called 4-7-8, and I find that is sometimes like the 7 and the 8 seconds are a little too long. Box breathing is a little easier. If for some reason you're like anxious or your heart's racing a little, you can do 3 seconds. Really the main point is to be counting and focusing on your breath. It's really hard to, think of everything you have to do the next day when you're counting and you're feeling the breath going into your body. So I can't both be, thinking about how mad I am at my husband and box breathing at the same time. So it's really good to just focus on your breath and count in general, and box breathing is one of the easier ways, I think.
Yeah, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw something before. It said if you want to fall asleep, it's the same concept, but it says like start at the beginning of your day and try to like remember everything you did. And I've noticed before when I do that, so I'm a religious person, so normally I try to pray before I go to bed. But sometimes what I do is I try to pray about everything that happened throughout the day. And I never end the prayer because I fall asleep. Because sometimes you can't fall asleep because you're thinking about the things that happened during the day. Or like how many times you have an interaction with something or you do something and then you think about it later, like, oh, I should have done this or I should have said that. And then at nighttime when you're laying there, but same with box breathing, it's probably better. But that's something I do sometimes when I can't sleep. I just start thinking about everything I did that day, even the small little details. And normally I don't get to the end of the day.
That's perfect. And the main thing there is to keep moving on with like what was after that versus like I did this one thing and oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. That was so ridiculous. You know, you'll see a whole bunch of tips online. There's something that has been trending lately, cognitive shuffling. If you look at the grand scheme of things, they're all sort of the same thing. It's just focusing on one thing so you can't be focused on everything else. So cognitive shuffling is where you take a word, water, and so W, you'll say, okay, what starts with the W? And you think of as many words as possible, and then when you run out of words, you move to the A. And same thing. So maybe you go through it once, maybe you go through it 15 times, but it's just almost impossible to think about other things when you're so focused on that. So you're not stressed, you're falling asleep faster. People say that helps them fall asleep faster. And again, it's sort of the same thing as what you're saying, like going through your day.
How do you feel about white noise?
I don't personally like white noise. It's like very harsh for me, but sound in general can be super helpful to sleep. White noise is really just the most common, but like pink and brown are a little, what they would say, softer. It can help with sleep in general. It helps to block out noise, but it can also help with your brain waves and slowing down your brain waves if it's consistent. I like noise machines a lot better than listening to TV or listening to music. Our brains love patterns, and so especially if you're listening to music before you go to bed, your brain is like trying to guess what's the next song, what's the next lyric, and even if you're not thinking about it, like if you don't know you're thinking about it, your brain is still doing that. So it's kind of keeping you awake. So I like the idea of it. I like different colors than white personally.
Two of my favorite things to do if I'm tired is napping and meditating.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on each of those? When I say nap, they're like 12, 15-minute naps because I've heard anything over 30 starts to put you in a REM cycle, and then it's a lot harder to get out and you feel groggy and tired. And then with meditating, if I come home from work and I feel like stressed or wore out, like mentally, I'll put a like 10-minute meditation thing on YouTube. And normally what happens is I get to 8 minutes, you know, you're like trying not to think about anything, and you're focusing on your breathing, kind of like the box thing. And around, I say 8 minutes, I fall asleep. And then I always set like a timer for 12 minutes. And then I wake up 6 minutes later and I feel amazing. Like that weight or stress that I felt like in my head mentally, it's kind of gone. And then obviously I got like a short little power nap and I wake up, and then the rest of the day feels almost longer. Like it kind of slows things down for you because how many of us are we're just all over the place, and your day goes by like that. For me though, that's kind of something that helps me deal with that, I guess, midday drowsiness.
I think that's super important too sometimes, especially when I'm working with people who are like the 9-to-5 type, or you know, a startup and they're just working like all hours of every day. It's something as simple as that. I'm like, do you have 10 minutes? Maybe you don't have 10 minutes, but maybe you have 5 minutes. At 2 p.m., take 5 minutes and just sit there and breathe or do a meditation. You know, it helps to tell your body that you can relax. And even if, as we were talking before, you know, what you do during the day impacts your sleep. So if at 2 p.m. you're able to relax for 5 minutes, and at 7 p.m. you're able to relax for 5 minutes, when you go to bed at 10 p.m., your body's like, okay, wait, we know how to do this. We know how to relax. We did it earlier today. So I think that's really, really important to try to do throughout your day.
If you had to say one thing for someone who struggles with sleep to start doing tomorrow, what would that be?
One thing. I mean, consistency is probably the most impactful thing for all humans in general. So I would say try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, no matter what. Even
That's
if you're
tough.
exhausted. Yeah.
Especially for the weekends.
Yeah.
I think Saturday into Sunday off the Whoop data was the longest hours of sleep, because normally on the weekends most people don't work, some people do, like depending on your schedule. It's different for everyone, but I feel like everyone always has that one day where they're like, I'm gonna catch up on sleep, which is kind of a myth, right? It's kind of hard to catch up on sleep.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, it's so, I think, ironic because like we go and we say all these good things that sleep does, and then we're like, get out of bed, don't oversleep. So they say you can't catch up because the very next day after you don't sleep well, you're already feeling those effects. So like if I'm groggy and I'm miserable, I can't undo that on Saturday because I already lived that. You also have what's called sleep debt. So if you're someone who needs 7 hours of sleep and you're only getting 6 hours, by the time the weekend comes, that's 5 hours less. So to truly make up for it, are you gonna sleep 10, 11, 12 hours? I mean, probably not. I do personally sleep in a little bit on the weekends. I also don't have trouble sleeping. So if you are someone who's having trouble sleeping, consistency is by far not the easiest. It's the most impactful thing to do, though.
Yeah, that's so Whoop tells you like your sleep debt and all that stuff as well, which is, but again, it's one of those things you look at it and you're like, oh, I'm 3 hours behind. How do I catch up on these 3 hours? And like you said, it's kind of hard to sleep in 12 hours or whatever it is you got to make up by the end of that weekend. So what is something you're working on right now in your practice that's, say, new or interesting?
We are looking more at monitoring people with sleep apnea. So it's sort of like a mix between the consumer wearable device and tracking people who have a sleep disorder. So it looks like an Oura Ring, for example, what a lot of people get monitored on. It looks like an Oura Ring, but it has a lot more data because it's medical. And so we're looking at that to try to make small changes. A lot of people who have sleep apnea, especially if they're wearing one of those CPAP masks, it's so effective, but it's also like kind of annoying. And so there's a lot of like little tips and tricks and small adjustments that can be made, but people don't really have the time to be going back and forth to the doctor all the time. So in working with the coach to do that, it's so much easier and it's so much faster. So we've been doing that. We did it a few years ago and we were treating about 50 patients a month. And then we stopped for a little while and now we're picking up again just because there's a little bit more interest. So
now, do you have a team around you, or is it just you?
I have a few coaches that work for me. They have different specialties. So I have one who was a sleep technologist, or is, I guess, for about 20 years. So he is even more in depth with sleep apnea and different conditions. I have another sleep coach who has a postgraduate degree in sleep medicine, but she is a physical trainer and a Kundalini yoga instructor. So very well-rounded, depending on, what kind of things you're interested in.
And you can do most of your coaching, say someone in California, you can do like through Zoom. Like it doesn't need to be actually in person.
Yeah, no, almost everything we do is virtual. We do a handful of like corporate like wellness event type things that just happen to be in person, but almost everything is virtual, especially again if we're looking at data. Even if it is your Oura Ring and you want to send that to me, you can just like screenshot or send it to me. So everything's virtual.
So what does it look like if someone wants to reach out to you, become a patient? Is it you talk with them or before paying, or how does that look?
Yeah, we do mostly free consultations. We have calendar links, and I have them for the different coaches as well. We always offer like instant download sort of situations. We want people to have those resources, especially, again, I know they're going to try to find it elsewhere, so I would rather give them that also has throughout things that they, like why you should talk to a doctor about this, or if this isn't working for you, maybe you should talk to a coach. So I always recommend trying to do those first, also because humans are probably going to want to do it yourself first. And then if and when that's not enough, you can work with the coach. It would be virtually. Find us on Instagram or on a website, send us a message, we'll get you scheduled, and it's usually 3 to 4 sessions. We can always go longer, But I find 3 to 4 sessions is at least enough to help people start feeling a difference. And then if they feel like they can continue on their own with those habits, then they're great. If they want a little bit more support, then we can just book another 3 or 4 sessions.
Do you know who Andrew Huberman is?
I do.
He has a quote that says, "Sleep is a foundation on which all mental and physical performance is built."
I
And
agree.
it goes back on what everything we
100%.
talked.
Yeah.
I like listening to Andrew Huberman, even though some of the stuff he says is, you have to really be paying attention.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he has his own, I guess, beliefs on some things that maybe you think are different. But yeah, he's a good one to listen to and learn from.
He's great. There are definitely things that I love and hate about him. I do love that he takes the science and he breaks it down so that everybody can listen. And I think it's really great that he encourages people to, again, take control of their own health, which is amazing. Now, when you start getting into like stacking 15 supplements that he's making millions on, I don't love that. But yeah, I think he's really interesting, and I think that he can help people to live a healthier lifestyle, even if they just take like 1 or 2 tips here and there.
Yeah, I think something that you and him both do is you both give out a lot of free content with value that you're not looking, especially like you, to look. You're looking to help people almost. Mm-hmm. And then obviously if they're more interested, they'll come and reach out to you. You're not trying to say make $1 off of any person that you possibly can.
Yeah. It just feels icky to do that. Like, yeah, there's influencers making a ton of money on supplements or products. And companies are reaching out and will you sell this and will you sell that? And I'm like, I could, but I don't really believe in that. Or
yes.
I don't know, maybe 2 of my clients are going to ask for that and I'll tell them about it. But that's not going to be my job. Like, it's not my job to just sell stuff.
Be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Something I try to do as well is just because someone wants to give you a product to promote or give away and you can get it for free doesn't mean you should, especially if you don't like it. The pre-workouts, so many pre-workouts they'll send me, and always I'm like, I have to like it before I'm going to promote it, and if not, I'm not promoting it, because sometimes you get like a pre-workout or protein and they're garbage.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's no way in the world I would do, like, eat this or drink this. Why would I promote it to someone else just to make a few bucks?
Right, exactly. It's kind of like, what's the point?
So where can people find you?
Primarily on Instagram, Sleep Better NYC. I'm on a few other social media platforms, but pretty much everything goes to Instagram first. So if you're there, visit me there.
TikTok?
I'm on TikTok, although I don't keep up with it as much. I'm a little older, so I don't really even understand it. But I'm on TikTok, Instagram. I think I'm going to deactivate my Facebook. I don't love it there. And my website, sleepbetter.nyc.
We'll put those in the show notes so people can find you.
Perfect.
One last question.
Mm-hmm.
What is one quote, podcast, book that you enjoy, live by, that you just recommend to the guest and me?
Oh, actually, I just posted the other day about a quote by Gary Vee. He said basically, like, play when you're playing, rest when you're resting, work when you're working. And it's so simple, but I do find that especially nowadays, we're always doing a million things, but we're never doing a million things like 100%. Like, I have 3 minutes before a Zoom call, so I'm like, all right, let me check my email real quick and switch the laundry and grab a water. Instead, I could say, okay, I have 5 minutes before a Zoom call, let me prepare and just work when I'm working. And rest when you're resting. When you're resting, you're not making a to-do list for tomorrow. You're not being productive while you rest, which is something I think especially millennials do. We're like, how can we make this rest more productive? So just compartmentalizing a little bit more helps us to just enjoy our life better, but also helps you to sleep better. If I've done my work when I'm working, then I'm able to rest when I'm resting.
That's good. I like it.
I like it.
Great way to end the podcast.
Yay.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.